Hey guys, I'm back with another What's Its Face this week. This week it's going to be part color discussion and part redraw. So, I bet a lot of you remember this piece of mine from back in December of 2020, which isn't actually that long ago, but it kind of feels like it is. I know it's massively popular and a lot of people buy it on merch and stuff, but the funny thing is, I actually hate this piece. When I finished it back in December, I had some reservations, but I didn't really change anything because I didn't feel like it. Cough, laziness. So, I'm always really surprised when people tell me how much they like it because I don't like it at all. I look at it and I want to cry. Don't get me wrong, I love the concept, and Whiteout herself doesn't look half bad, but especially as the last several months have gone by, I've gotten to disliking it more and more. So, I've decided to do a redraw since I've identified what kind of bothers me the most about the original, which means it's time to take round 2. This Sunday's video then is going to be about my thought process, the redesign, what changed, my reasoning behind it, with a smattering of rudimentary color science thrown in. So, I hope you guys enjoy it because I am going to give a little spoiler and say that I am head over heels in love with my redraw. To begin with, let me explain why the old piece bothers me so much. The biggest thing for me is the clashing colors. You have Whiteout with her purple tinted black and white theme, and then the glass is some weird blue-gray combo. The plants and the succulents switch between gross, bland shades of green and horrendously bright shades of pink and yellow. I cannot even begin to explain to you how much I hate that pink and yellow. I hate it. Overall, the colors just kind of mix to create this icky, bland, but ostentatious sort of background that doesn't work at all, and the only word that I can think of to even use to describe it is just that it clashes, and it doesn't work at all. It just doesn't work. So, here's where I talk about color for a tiny bit. Basically, my personal method behind color palettes has two options: complementary or contrasting. For those of you who don't know, complementary colors mean that I try to pick shades that work well together. Blues and greens, yellows and reds, you get the idea. These colors work well together because they're very close on the color wheel. Sometimes I'll stay on the warm side of the color wheel with reds, yellows, oranges, browns, pinks, stuff like that, warm colors. Sometimes I'll go cooler with blues, purples, greens, indigos, and teals. Using colors that are similar or close on the color wheel like this helps me to keep things complementary. Of course, you still have to take some things into consideration like tone or value, which is basically the amount of light or darkness in your color. A light lavender purple can still clash with a dark royal blue if you're not careful. Still not as bad as some things, like that pink and yellow, but still. Speaking of contrast though, that's the other way my drawings can go. Sometimes contrasting colors on purpose can get you a really nice color palette. It takes a little bit more effort to pull it off correctly because it's not hard to stray into yucky color contrast like my original terrarium drawing. Generally, I feel like I tend toward complementary color palettes with just a dash of contrast thrown in occasionally for flavor. For instance, this piece of peril that I did a while ago. Obviously, I mainly have reds, oranges, yellows, and golds in here. Except for her eye and her fire, which I made bright blue. The complete opposite on the color wheel to make these features really pop. This is a great example of how contrasting colors can help you make a statement with your piece. And don't get me wrong, I don't think contrasting colors is bad or anything. I know some artists who make amazing color palettes with colors that I could never pull together. The point that I'm trying to make here, though, is that the color contrast in my previous Whiteout piece is not the good kind. Now, I understand if people like the old piece. I'm always a little surprised, but you know what? Whatever, you do you. It's just that when I look at it, I see like a pool of clashing colors that aren't cohesive enough to make a solid, pride-inspiring piece. So one of the most important things that I focused on when I did the redraw was fixing that, because that's the big thing for me every time. I trashed the pinks and the yellows, and instead of that dead inside shade of green, I got a much cooler and more appealing shade. In general, the new piece focuses more on greens, blues, and purples, with the brown and tan of the soil and sticks making a great little contrasting dot of color for flair. Whiteout has the purple tinting, and the blue terrarium glass and green succulents help this color palette work much easier on the eyes. When I see this collection of colors, it just seems cool, calm, and extremely appealing to me. Whereas the old one just kind of makes me want to bleach my eyes. On a slightly related note, I feel like the succulents themselves have improved a lot. Obviously, they're not the focus of the piece, so I tried to keep them simple but still nice to look at. And I feel like I really succeeded in this. I think I managed to do better on these this time around because I've spent a lot of my spare time doing watercolor succulents in my sketchbook. Y'all haven't seen any of these yet since I haven't done a sketchbook tour for the sketchbook yet. So I've gotten tons of practice with the shapes and the shading techniques behind drawing a good succulent. I'm honestly so pleased with how the succulents turned out this time around because I've made a big improvement, over the last time, and I think they look really awesome. Another thing I didn't like about the old one was the terrarium itself. If you look at the speed paint that I have up for that piece, you can see that I actually, originally had a full globe terrarium like the new one that I drew, in the redraw. But I chopped it in half about halfway through the speed paint. I remember making this choice because I didn't like how the glass was covering the majority of whiteout. So I kept this in mind when I was designing the new piece, and that accounts for the perspective change you see. Instead of showing whiteout off to the side, she's more toward the middle, and so is the circular hole in the glass. This way I don't have to worry about the glass covering the piece's focal point as much, and I can still get the full glass globe. Again, another small change that really helps make a difference for me and pulls this piece together really nicely. Something else I've changed was the design of Whiteout herself. Not because I dislike the old design, in fact it's the only part of the drawing that I can really appreciate anymore, but because I just felt like mixing it up. As you'll notice, I actually draw Whiteout more than any other Wings of Fire character, excluding the drawings I do for the animatics and PMVs. Not even because I like her the most, not that I dislike her, I just love her design and her aesthetic. The black and the white contrast is super nice, and she's such a sweetheart, it makes her really fun to draw. Another thing to notice is that every single time I draw her, something changes in her design. Little details, colors, scale designs, simple things like that I just tweak and play around with every time because, like I said, her design is really fun. So it's neat to look back over my drawings of her and watch her design evolve with each reiteration. Also with this redraw, I gave a lot more attention to the shading and lighting on the glass and whiteouts. The succulents and dirt got minimal attention because, again, I don't want them to distract from our star whiteout. Giving them too much detail would make them pop and might draw your eye away from the focal point, which is always a bad thing. But one thing that I have always felt that the old piece is kind of missing is the kind of shine that I think a cute piece like this should have. My style has kind of evolved and changed over time, you may have noticed. To get cuter and cuter, my drawings have gotten closer and closer to chibis over time. I don't dislike it, it's just kind of happened. I never really saw myself drawing cutesier style art. Here I am. So it was kind of unintentional, but it does mean that I like certain pieces to seem shinier. So I paid really special attention to giving Whiteout and the glass terrarium a shine layer of their own to help the piece pop overall. Between the revamped color palette, the changed composition and design, and the increased attention to details like lighting and shading, I think this redraw is a stunning improvement, and I'm super, super in love with it. I could honestly just sit here and stare at this for hours. I finished and I kind of stared at my computer like, oh, did I create this? Is this me who drew this? I'd love to hear your thoughts about either of these pieces, the original or the redraw. Feel free to let me know in the comment section below. That's always really fun for me to read. As usual, this lovely piece will be on my Redbubble and DeviantArt, to which links are always in the description. Please remember to check these out. I always love it when people get to enjoy my work. Also, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel if you're interested in more videos like this. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope everyone has a blessed week. I'll see you next Sunday with another video.